As we do these patterns, a couple things to remember. We're going mostly for process rather than outcome. I'm hoping you're getting some of your outcomes. That is, you're getting a feel for something and installing it. But if you're not, the main thing to learn is the process. So I know that sometimes we'll blow the whistle and maybe you're not done. That's one of the reasons for the evening practice sessions, to finish and to get the outcome. But the main thing is to get the process. And so that's the question I want to ask as we debrief right now. Are you learning the process? Because if you know the process, it's just a matter of time and practice to run it and get the outcome. The outcome being that you're free from needing to fix other people, rescue other people, and you're free to be responsible to them in ways that you arrange and contract and negotiate, but not responsible for them. How did that go? Okay. Comments, questions? We'll pass the mic around. And comments, questions? Who's got the mic? Okay, so Tony's ready with the mic. Just raise your hand if you've got a comment or question. Vasily down here in the front.
I love that. Well, I thought what I really liked about this pattern is that just the question, what kind of person do you become, or does that make you actually really, actually the whole, the responsible person really sank in, and that actually really started to distinguish between me and the other in a very strong way.
Okay.
And it was yeah, it was very interesting to take that into other places, into other situations, and realizing that being responsible for is a very interesting distinction. How do you say that? Distinction between for yourself and for others, and then making that distinction for yourself and to others. I'm not adding a lot of stuff here, but I'm just telling you about my experience.
That's good that it settled down as I'm a responsible person. Okay.
Thanks.
I'm curious, did anyone, when you started making the distinction and you said, I give myself, or like if you gave yourself permission to not respond, did anyone feel uncomfortable with that? Because I know I was working with someone and that came up, and one of the things we talked about was giving yourself permission to feel uncomfortable and owning that, and allowing other people also to feel uncomfortable when you don't save them.
That permission piece seemed to be very important to me, both for me and for the person that I was working with.
Okay, so that seemed important for you to do that.
I felt it, doing this process, it gave me a lot of control. I felt like in my own self I had a lot of control, and also a lot of relief. I'm not responsible for these people anymore. I don't have to worry. It's got nothing to do with me. And that in itself is very empowering. It allows me to just concentrate on me. And so that's what I got out of it.
Did you notice something in the manuals that was different with this pattern than almost every pattern we've done today and the last 3 days? April did. It's a trick, and I did it on purpose, and it's a trick. In the pattern that you read on this page, there are really no questions. They're statements. Whereas almost every pattern is driven by questions. And I did this to provide some testing for competency if you can translate into questions easily. Did anybody notice that now? That it was a little challenging because it says just access and amplify the power state. It doesn't give you the question. And so that was intentional. And there was 2 or 3 that kind of has a little difficulties that if you just read it, it's not going. Because I want you to think about questions and translating things to questions. Do you have a sense of your own power zone? Do you feel responsible for yourself? Do you feel responsible for others? Are you responsible to others? And so turning it into questions. So that was a little trick this morning. Here comes the mic.
There were those statements in under point 3 that are basically declarations where I would have my partner repeat them. So rather than turn them into questions, but I was
So you can ask the question, which one of these is the most impactful for you? Which one of these do you like best? Which one could you take and now customize for yourself? Any experiences with this one? Was this fairly easy for everybody to make that distinction? Responsibility 2-4.
I just want to say that for those of us that are involved in helping people, because I do a lot of coaching, I do a lot of pastoral counseling. I was sharing with Michael while everybody was working how important it is to do this, because you really can get into rescuing people without realizing, and you think you're doing your job. It's like, I'm supposed to rescue people. That's what and for me, I have a ministerial background, and you almost think, well, that's what I'm called to do. I'm called to rescue people. And it can get you into a lot of trouble. And like Michael said, I have had those things of staying up late at night trying to figure out how to help someone. And I was sharing with him one case I had which changed it for me a few years ago. And I realized that I was working with this couple on their marriage. And we had been working for 2 years. And finally, I came to the realization one night, being up late at night, that I was working harder on their marriage than they were. I was doing more research. I was buying the books. I was getting the tapes for them. And I realized that I was keeping them together. And the wife called me, but the husband had gotten to the point where he didn't really care about the marriage anymore. He was not working. The wife was, but he wasn't. The wife called me and said, I'm going to get a divorce. I'm just going to file. He doesn't care anymore. And she paused and waited for me to change that, to say, oh, no, let's try this and this and this. And I didn't. And she just waited, and there was an awkward silence there. Because neither one, and I was committed to not saying it. And I knew if I say something, I can get her to change this. And so I simply said, we will support you in whatever decision you make. And she ended up getting the divorce. And now when I work with couples, it has changed it for me to where I tell them, it's about you and what you want to create, the experience you want. I will provide you with the tools. I'll show you what to do, but you have to do this. So it's off of me. So I get to bed early now.
Sleep better.
I sleep better now.
Okay. We'll go here later. We'll come.
So you, as a metastate to her husband, she was willing to stay married to.
I'm sorry?
You, as a metastate to her husband, she was willing to stay married to.
Yeah. Yeah, what he said.
Yeah. Go ahead.
When I was working at a question came up, which I just want to throw it at you. In terms of responsibility 4 and responsibility 2, which was what if you're in like a relationship or an agreement with another person or group, and there's a disagreement between the two entities, how that relates to the responsibility 4, responsibility 2, in terms of working that out. We're talking about how that relations are there.
Okay. Well, with the diagram here, we have now relationship and accountability. Relationship is the relating. What are we giving to each other? This allows us to analyze a relationship. What are you giving to me in terms of speech and behavior, and what am I giving to you in terms of speech and behavior? Because speech and behavior is the public exchange. How do I want you to talk to me? What do we want to do? And it can be just a friendship. Well, I want to meet, once a week or a couple times a week, and we'll just get together and maybe go for a walk, go for a run. That's what I want us to do. I want you to be on time. If you're not on time, let me know. That's what I want you to give to me. If it's a love relationship, a significant other, then how do we want to treat each other? So we can analyze in terms of behaviors. This gives us the complex equivalence, the behavioral complex equivalence of love, or trust, or friendship, or associate, or colleague. What is the behavioral complex equivalence of this feeling that we get from our interactions? Then if we say, when you talk to me this way, I feel whatever, could you not talk to me that way? That would mean something to me. I'd like you to give that to me. And then we can look at what we give and how we give, and the exchange, the interaction. And so we can analyze the relating as to what are we relating back and forth, how and to what degree, and is it satisfying? Does it satisfy and fill up our emotional bank accounts so that the commerce we have is satisfying? And then when you're hurting, how would you like me to talk to you? Or what would you, because some people say, well, if you just get away, I just need space. That would mean something to you? That'd be significant? Or when you're hurting, I just need you to hold me. You don't ask me a lot, just hold me. What do you, and so this, we analyze the relationship in terms of actions and speech and interaction, and we find out what's important, what counts for the other person.
One of the things I do with married couples, because I do a lot of marital counseling, is that I will, exactly what Michael said, I'll have them to identify what specifically do they want or need. And then I will ask the other person, well, the first thing I ask them is, what experience do you want to create? And which is always to them something new, because no one's ever told them that they can create whatever experience they want. So do you want, I said, do you want to love, or do you want to fight? Is that what you want to do? You know, and they go, well, no. I said, okay, what do you want? And then we start identifying exactly what needs to happen. And I will ask the other, like if the wife says, well, I need him to respect me. And they think they're done at that point, and they're not. So, well, what specifically do you mean by respect? Because the husband or the other spouse will always go, but I do respect you. But they're not fulfilling the other person's criteria. So I have them identify the criteria, and I will turn to the other person and say, can you do that? Will you take responsibility for that towards that other person to establish? And they go, yeah, because I never knew that's what they wanted. You know, and so and in all honesty, I'd say 95, 98% of my counseling is really doing that. And when we do that, we're just about done.
Okay. Let's take the microphone.
In the field of parenting, what extent it is healthy that you interfere in kids' hours, or to what extent you leave them alone?
The last 3 days going through Metastates, we've been talking about children and developmental psychology at some level and supporting that development. Up to 5, 6, 7 years old, really we take a lot of responsibility for how they talk and how they act. And then we start letting it go, releasing it more and more so that the child can take on personal responsibility and know that that child will not be rescued from feeling bad. Because if we keep rescuing the child from, if we do its homework, if we do the child, if the child wakes up late and then we rush the child to school in our car rather than, well, you know, suffer the consequences. So we teach responsibility, or we teach that, oh, someone will always, you know, save you. So there's that dance. And it is a dance, and there's no, you know, prescription as we empower our children to feel responsible for their thinking and feeling, speaking and behaving. It is a dance, and with different children, we have to do different things to facilitate that. And sometimes letting them really suffer some consequences and learning it early rather than late.
I have a 9-year-old daughter, and we're kind of going through that now. She's learning more and more responsibility for, she's learning the consequences of her behavior, good and bad. And sometimes it's a little tough because she is Daddy's little girl. Daddy wants to rescue. Yeah. And my wife and I, they went on a trip to Orlando, Florida, and I was coming here, and my wife told her, now you have to have your room clean. Now it wasn't that if you don't have your room clean, you're not going to Florida, but she had to fulfill. So my wife had said to her, goes, if you don't have your room clean, you're going to go to Daddy's San Diego. I was like, oh, no. That's not an option. But what we did do is we gave her options. You know, we try to gauge where she's at in her development. What can she handle? And my wife and I talk about these things. So having another spouse there with you. There are times my wife is correcting me. She says, you know, you're spoiling her too much. And of course, I always say, I spoil all of you. I'm the only one in the house now, so I have, it's like 2 daughters and my wife, and so I'm the only guy. But my wife will give me feedback, and it's very helpful to know what she needs to do. And so more and more we've been giving her responsibilities, and she's had to suffer some things. When she didn't follow through on something, and she didn't think we were going to do it, I said, you can't go. She says, why? You didn't get it done. But Dad! And I was going, but what? And then she pouts and she fumes. And we actually have sat down with her and said, I said, it's okay. I said, sometimes you're going to be upset and angry, and that's okay. We have certain boundaries. There's certain things you cannot say or do, but she's learning, and over the past few days, we gave her the option. We said, how do you want to clean your room? Do you want to do it all in one day? Do you want to do a little bit at a time leading up to the trip? How do you want to do it? And she chose a little bit at a time because it looked like somebody had threw a bomb in her room and just, but she got it all done before she left. She got it all done. And I think what Michael said is so true. It's a dance. I don't think somebody asked me that during the break. I said, I don't think you can say, well, at this age, give them all the responsibility. Every child is different.
Let's throw out the question now, how does this apply to personal genius? How does this apply to sustaining and living in a state of genius that is characterized by focus and clarity and passion and playfulness and engagement? How does this apply? How does this assist us? It empowers us. Okay, it empowers us in different ways. How else? How else does it apply, especially when just life hurts, when things aren't going right?
Well, every exercise we've had, or I had, I always went to my executive state.
Okay. So each of these patterns that we've done, we've risen to our executive state and
made my highest decision.
Okay, for how I'll respond.
Yeah.
Okay, what's my response in this situation?
And what benefits me?
Yeah. So it keeps us at cause. It keeps us at cause so that we don't go into victimization. We stay empowered, even if it's challenging, even if it puts us to the test. At least, whatever happens, I can think, I can feel, I can say, I can do. At least I'm still in charge of my response to it. Okay, say more. Conscious-centeredness.
Well, one is just, it's not a matter of being unconscious about anything. You're becoming very conscious of how centered you are in your response to and response towards self.
Okay.
So it's just that conscious, I'm centered, I'm grounded, I'm real.
So between the gap of the stimulus and my response, there's that mindfulness, that consciousness that I respond rather than react. I take the best response possible given what skills I have at this point, and I respond. And if I'm not getting the best response from that, then that's feedback. So I stay at cause, and that helps to sustain my personal genius. So one thing that can undermine a sense of your own personal focus and mastery and genius is when we feel like a victim, is when we feel I can't do anything, feel futile. And so no matter how challenging the outside world, if I know that I can always respond, I can always learn something or do something, I'm still at cause, then we can sustain that personal genius. And that's going to become really critical for all the patterns hereafter if we can maintain that awareness that I can always respond. So
basically, give us the choice to decide what is best for us in any given moment.
Okay. So we're at choice, and we have that sense of choice. And this goes back to what we'll do when we finish today with resilience. And Viktor Frankl is such a great exemplar of resilience that they can take everything away from me except the choice to hate them. They can't make me do that. The ultimate human freedom is choice.
It's like personal genius widens the gap between the stimulus and response.
I like that. I like that. Personal genius widens the gap between stimulus and response. That's good. Somebody write that down. That's good. So that widens the gap. So we have more movement, more room, more mobility, more flexibility, more options, more choices, and then we may not be feeling great, but we feel good about, I'll figure this out. It's not the end.
I think the other thing is that the responsibility 2 and 4, I think, speaking for myself, it also allows you to fall off the track and get back on.
Okay, good.
Because it's all within you.
Very good.
It's not, it's not they knocked me off, but this was my response. And you said, and knowing that your response is the best response you have available to you at the time, and that you have the power to learn from that and create another one.
Okay.
It's always, no matter what happens, you always have to, almost like the symbol of Viktor Frankl, no matter what goes on, I can decide how I'm going to respond to it.
And I can always respond again. Just because I didn't make the best response at this moment, I can always respond again.
Because they're all my responses.
All my responses.
All me, all the time.
My responses. Okay. This afternoon, after our lunch break, and we're going to take an hour and 15 minutes for lunch. Hopefully we can get to lunch in an hour and 15 minutes. After that, each of the teams, the first 5 teams, will meet to do a half hour on their modeling project. The other 2 teams, teams 6 and 8, teams 6 and 8 will, let me invite you to do something that will support your personal genius on pages, it's the lavender pages in the notebook, page 9, beginning. Teams 6 and 8, and I think that's Vicki and Mike's team. Let me have you during that half hour to work on page 9, 10, and 11, and to revisit and to look at the prerequisites of personal genius on page 9. That's the 4th paragraph. The prerequisites of personal genius. And then on page 10, we have some more of the prerequisites of personal genius.